Translator, Reverie, Editor, Kurisu. These were a set of divine bones. Though endless ages had washed over them, the faint majesty of divinity still clung to each fragment. Moreover, these were absolutely not the remains of any ordinary human. There was a horn upon the forehead. It was plain to see that the horn had been snapped, leaving only a small broken half upon the brow. Furthermore, the arms and legs bore wing-like bones, likewise shattered. One could easily imagine that when this god yet lived, its limbs had possessed razor-edged, blade-like bones thrusting outward in savage sharpness. This is no human. Could it be a beast that shed its form and took on humanity? Ling Han's heart throbbed. In ancient records, he had read that when beasts stepped into god tier, they could slough off their beastly shell and change into human shape. Some humans carried the bloodlines of mighty ancient beasts, like Feng Yan, so it was entirely possible that after a beast became a god and transformed, it took a human mate, leaving behind offspring who inherited a trace of beast bloodline. No matter what, these bones were priceless. Without another word, Ling Han intended to store the remains into the Black Tower, yet in the very next instant he discovered that this thought could not be carried out. What happened? Could god-tier items not be stored within the Black Tower? No. In a flash, he saw a blood-sucking bug the size of a fist burst out from within the remains. It fixed its gaze on him and released a bone-deep chill that made the air itself seem to freeze. A flower blossom tier existence! Hiss! Ling Han abruptly understood. Could these blood-sucking bugs be birthed from the god's corpse itself? That would explain why they feared neither the lingering oppressiveness of a dead god nor starvation. They normally hid within the divine remains, drinking in the god's lingering presence. Damn it. What in the world was this place? Was it using a god as sacrifice? Mother! Yuakayu shrieked in fright. They were already exerting everything to block the blood-sucking bugs outside and could barely hold the narrow passageway. Yet Ling Han had drawn out another bug king, one at the flower blossom tier. Don't be nervous. You all keep dealing with the small ones. Leave the big one to me, Ling Han said with a smile, lifting his right hand to summon the rock spirit. At this moment, the rock spirit had already fully recovered. The earth was solid, and the rock spirit born from it inherited that steadfast strength. Its defensive power was astonishing, and its recovery power was equally terrifying. So long as it was not annihilated on the spot, it would swiftly return to its usual state. Aang! The moment the rock spirit appeared, it threw back its head and roared at the Bug King, sound waves slicing forth like blades. The Bug King was tiny, yet its flower blossom tier might was plain for all to see. It felt not the slightest fear and beat its wings. Weng, weng, weng. Its flapping stirred up a violent whirlwind that surged to meet the incoming sound waves. Poo, poo, poo. The whirlwind and sound waves crashed together, blasting out a rippling shock wave. The rock spirit's sound wave clearly held the upper hand. Though slightly weakened, it still shattered the two whirlwinds and continued to slam toward the Bug King. Ling Han nodded inwardly. The rock spirit was no beast, but a wondrous being born of heaven and earth. In terms of standing, it was not merely a king among beasts. It was a king among kings. Just as those who cultivated 7 flashes of sword chi could be called kings among sword users, and those who cultivated 10 flashes were also kings. Yet could such kings truly be the same? The Bug King beat its wings and charged straight at the rock spirit, so fast it was like a black streak, clearly attempting to exploit the rock spirit's sluggishness. The rock spirit's movements were indeed not as swift as the Bug King's. Only when the Bug King stabbed its mouthpart toward its heart did the rock spirit finally swing its palm over in a swat. The Bug King had already begun to drink. Once it drained an opponent's blood dry, no matter how mighty, that opponent would become nothing more than a corpse. Yet the instant it sucked, it discovered, damn it, where was the blood? Pang! The rock spirit's palm had already landed. Its speed was not absurdly fast, but when the strike reached the peak of its motion, it became terrifyingly swift. It was like swatting a fly. The rock spirit loosened its hand and the Bug King instantly dropped, yet after falling halfway, it beat its wings and rose again. It glared at the rock spirit, eyes filled with hatred and bafflement. Can't suck blood. Could this already be a corpse? But how can a corpse be so lively and fierce? bound by the environment in which it had grown. Even though the Bug King had stepped into Flower Blossom Tier, its experience and intelligence were quite limited, and in that moment it was utterly confused. It was confused, but the rock spirit was not. It roared mightily as 36 hairs burst forth atop its head. Z, the power of heaven and earth, was drawn in, and in an instant, dazzling white lightning shot out together with its fist, Tiandu Thunder Star Array. Unfortunately, this was only a 5th tier formation, and its effects were not optimal against a Flower Blossom tier Bug King. Yet against ordinary small blood-sucking bugs, its destructive power was monstrous. All come here, Ling Han shouted. Yokai Yu and Guang Yuan hurried over, but as large quantities of blood-sucking bugs surged in, they were struck by the bombardment of lightning power and instantly turned to ash. This was produced by a formation and relied upon the power of heaven and earth, needing no initiation at all from the rock spirit. The rock spirit merely had to guide the lightning, so it did not strike the three of them. The Bug King went mad with rage, releasing an ear-splitting shriek. At once, countless blood-sucking bugs gathered around it as their core, forming a black-colored tornado. It was drawing on the swarm's strength, turning many into one, using itself as the nucleus, adjusting from the center, then unleashing the swarm's power as a single force. However, a problem immediately arose. The Black Temple was only 3 meters high, and for the rock spirit, 10 times shorter. This height was enough to display its abilities. But for the swarm, it was far too cramped. The rock spirit seized the opening to strike. Lightning power erupted, carrying a powerful restraining effect against evil things. The tornado was continuously weakened, while the force in the rock spirit's punch was not diminished in the slightest, continuing to drive toward the Bug King at the core. Peng! A fist shot out, and the entire swarm instantly scattered. The Bug King was flung away and released strange squeaks, looking incomparably furious. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "Small fire, come out and lend a hand." Hong, a flame flew out and transformed into the appearance of a small dog, circling around Ling Han's legs. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched involuntarily. He had summoned strange fire to fight alongside the rock spirit, not to have this fellow imitate a dog and act cute. Go! He tossed out a kick, and the little dog formed by strange fire was sent flying toward the swarm. A large swarm of blood-sucking bugs truly mistook strange fire for food, diving at it one after another. But strange fire immediately shed its cute guise and turned into a terrifying apocalyptic being. Hong, the flames swept around, and in an instant a massive swarm of bugs was burned into ash. Strange fire at present could even assist Ling Han in refining heaven-grade medicinal pills, at least comparable to a flower blossom tier. And it was the natural nemesis of such swarming insects. With Small Fire's outburst, the entire swarm hurriedly retreated as if encountering its natural enemy. Even the Bug King revealed fear. All things had their nemesis, and Strange Fire was absolutely the blood-sucking bug's natural enemy. If the Bug King wished to fight against Small Fire, it would need to be at least 5 to 6 small tiers higher. Besides, there was still another spirit of the 5 elements. Kurisu. The towering golem stood like a mountain, sealing the doorway, while the strange fire cut off the foe's road of retreat, ceaselessly incinerating the swarming bug army. In no more than 10 minutes, the Bug King became a lone general without troops. The rock spirit and the strange fire surged forward together, one crushing down with sheer might to suppress the Bug King, the other scorching and burning it to cinders. After only a few more minutes, that flower blossom tier Bug King was burned utterly into ash. The rock spirit was merely charred black, and with a light wipe it returned to its usual state. If the rock spirit were to clash with the strange fire, the strange fire's searing heat would likely be of no use against the rock spirit. Yet the rock spirit's blows might not injure the strange fire's true body either. The two were probably locked in a balance where neither could truly do anything to the other. Of course, that was only if the two stood on the same tier. Otherwise, the strange fire could also boil stone into ash, and the rock spirit could likewise snuff out flame. Master Ling, your fortune truly defies the heavens. With a mighty puppet atop that ball of strange fire, you can do as you please among flower blossom tier existences. Yu Kai Yu praised highly, his eyes filled with admiration. flower blossom tier creatures had already stepped beyond the mortal coil, and though he was not far from the ninth layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, perhaps 2 or 3 years away, yet to move from the ninth layer of the spiritual pedestal tier into the flower blossom tier could take 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, and it would not be rare at all. Ao Feng was the Winter Moon sect's greatest genius in 100 years. But wasn't he still over 40 when he advanced into the flower blossom tier? Yue Zhenshan was now still at half-step flower blossom tier, and crossing that remaining half-step might happen tomorrow, or it might not happen for another 20 years. Perhaps there would be no hope in this life. Ling Han gave a faint smile and said, "Brother Yue may simply call me by name, or call me Master Han. Master Ling and the like makes me sound old." Yuo Kaiyu clearly did not dare to call Ling Han by his name. This was a heaven-grade alchemist with astonishing methods who had even slain a flower blossom tier bug king. Better to be cautious. "Then Master Han it is." Ling Han laughed inwardly. If Yuo Kaiyu knew his true identity, would he be angered into embarrassment? He walked back toward the remains, and with immense difficulty endured the soul-spirit severing pain, wrapping the remains up and storing it within the black tower. "Ah!" he cried out miserably as blood surged from his mouth, nose, ears, and eyes. He looked tragically wretched. However, the divine bones were stored inside the black tower. It was not done in vain. He collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. "Master Han, how are you?" Guang Yuan and Yuo Kaiyu both asked. They naturally saw the remains vanish, yet merely storing a corpse could make the 7 apertures bleed. This was truly bizarre. Ling Han wiped the blood from his face and said, "I'm fine." The 3 circled the Black Temple, searching for anything that might have been left behind. They found nothing, yet the surrounding walls were carved with countless characters, or rather, symbols. They understood none of it. The 3 felt as if they had never learned to read at all, staring at a wall full of words and unable to recognize a single one. Were these characters from the God realm? Ling Han thought inwardly. He knew something others did not. This mystery realm was most probably severed from the God realm, so the words that appeared here could also be divine words. Wasn't it only natural that mortals could not comprehend divine words? Whatever, let's go. They left the Black Temple, and the world had already returned to brightness. Even the Bug King had been eliminated, so with the remaining bugs now limited, they were quickly exterminated completely. However, the earlier battle had been somewhat chaotic, and the people could no longer be seen nearby. It was unknown where they had run off to. Ling Han did not care. The 3 pressed onward. After advancing about 5,000 meters, another Black Temple appeared before them. "Don't tell me there's another swarm of bugs in there?" Yuo Kaiyu said, fear lingering in his heart. "Then that would be too great," Ling Han replied with a smile. With a swarm of bugs, it meant there should be another divine skeleton inside for him to take. Yuo Kaiyu couldn't help rolling his eyes. How could there be such a strange person? That temple had no treasures. "Did you really like fighting those bugs that much?" Guang Yuan gave him a sympathetic look. After following Ling Han for a while, he knew just how much Ling Han loved to adventure. They entered the Black Temple, and sure enough, they encountered a nest of bugs. Ling Han once more summoned the golem and the strange fire, smoothly wiping out the bugs. But this time, the Bug King did not fight to the death and instead fled. Ling Han did not think to chase it and simply took away the divine bones on the sacrificial table, naturally bleeding from 7 apertures. His divine sense 1 was as though it were being sliced apart, nearly tearing him into pieces. "I can't endure any more." If he took another corpse, his soul would definitely scatter, turning him into an empty shell. Ling Han felt deep regret. These were divine remains, and even if no divine essence remained, the bones alone held immense research value. He could only wait for his divine sense to recover before taking it again. The 3 continued onward. This layer's space was enormous, and every 5,000 meters there stood a Black Temple. They kept their distance and avoided them, so no swarm of bugs came storming at them. After walking for 500,000 meters, they finally reached the layer's end. Ahead stood a grand golden wall, and to the side were stairways leading to the next layer. They were not the first to arrive. Of those who had been separated earlier, 1/3 had come here, about 20 people or so. No one recklessly headed toward the third layer, because they had already suffered greatly in the second layer, wasting many spirit talismans and even law decrees, gaining nothing in return. If the third layer were the same, with even greater danger, then they certainly would not want to go up. Ling Han was naturally unafraid. However, just as he was about to step onto the stairway, he was startled and turned his head to look into the distance. Affected by him, Yokai Yu and Guang Yuan also followed his gaze, but they saw nothing. They had not cultivated the eye of truth, so their eyesight could not compare to Ling Han's at all. "Something's coming!" Ling Han warned. Guang Yuan and Yue Kai Yu hurriedly readied themselves for battle. The others could see nothing, and at once some people secretly despised and cursed Ling Han for putting on airs. However, in only a short while, something red flashed in the distance, and in the blink of an eye, it drew nearer. Hiss! When everyone finally saw it clearly, they all sucked in a cold breath in astonishment. These were 6 red-haired beasts shaped like humans. Their height was ordinary, yet their entire bodies were covered in red hair. Even their faces could not be seen clearly. Vaguely, only a pair of gleaming red eyes and a fierce mouth could be made out. These red-haired beasts had no intention of communicating. The instant they arrived, they launched their attacks. Shoo! Shoo! They were absurdly fast as they pounced toward one person. In that moment, no one had any sense of propriety. Those who were not attacked did not rashly interfere, but instead watched carefully. The person being attacked sneered and said, "Scatter!" He swung his sword. 7 streaks of sword chi swept out, and as his martial intent manifested, it condensed into 7 great mountains, ready to crush the 6 red-haired beasts. He cultivated earth-type arts, and when his martial intent arose, it became a lofty mountain. This was a phantom form, yet its weight was no illusion at all. Even those equal to him in strength would find it unbearable if struck.